So good early afternoon. The aim of my lecture is to shed some light on cosmology of early medieval societies of Central Europe. And I am trying to approach this topic from anthropological point of view, which I miss amongst all the great books and articles on the topic. I am still a student in religious studies, so my work need to undergo further proof of concept validation. So, but I hope my lecture can at least be a food for though. I am starting from theory that cognitive categories within a society reflects its material context and socio-economic structure. I hope that similar socio-economic context results in similar cosmology. Of course, on the most general level of thought, the most general cognitive categories, so on. So I am approaching this using contemporary anthropological parallels. Yeah. I follow up the ideas of Karol Modzelewski and Georgia Osenda that early medieval societies was agropastoral and organized based on segmentary principles. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And I will focus on concept of law, order, and peace. Because as I will show, if there is no law, there is no future. So contrary to the ideas of contemporary punk movement. So agropastoral economy, there are three main features to be noticed. First, definition of pastoral societies. According to Osenda, in these societies, wealth is accounted in terms of livestock. Second, livestock do not have commercial or nutritional significance. Even Pritchett wrote in the Nuer, livestock must not be slaughtered except in sacrifice, and they are never slaughtered for food. And the third feature is that in each society, part of the population is always engaged in agriculture, and agriculture products form the main part of the diet. Okay, and that what is the segmentary organized society? Segments are structured, or segments are structural units of society. Segments operate autonomously without a central political body with coercive power, and they can be organized on various principles. Lineage principle is only one of them. There are usually 4 levels of organization, mainly the minimal one, I call it a village, which acts as an independent corporate group of neighbors in given territory. And second, it is the maximum level, the whole tribe. There is one important exception, pan-tribal sodality, so-called pan-tribal sodality, that aggregates members regardless of segments. Yeah, there are 2 fundamental principles. First principle is a logic of complementary oppositions and structural relativity. This could be expressed by 2 statements. First is the organization complementary opposition principle. I against my brothers, I and my brothers against my cousins, I and my brothers and my cousins against the world. So, and the second is the structural relativity. This is quote from even Pritchard again. Man acts as a member of his tribe in its relation to other tribes, but he does not act as a member of his tribe in the relation of his segment to the other segment of his tribe. And second fundamental principle is so-called, I call it this way, covenantal way of life. That it means relations are organized on agreement principle. Fundamental is principle of anonymity. The whole segment must be involved in given issue, and therefore there is essential role of so-called spokesmen and mediators. Yeah, key institutions in the sense of place are assembly sites. There are almost all activities in given segment life concentrated in this place, like law, trade, politics, social activities, and so on. Yeah, key institutions in the sense of secular elites are so-called spokesman and mediator. Elites are without coercive power. They are mainly act as a spokesman or mediators in various types of negotiations. Spokesman acts as a sacrificer, ceremonialist, and deal with ordinary affairs in his segment. He represents his segment. Whether mediator, we can call him law speaker, acts as a ceremonies and negotiations, acts in ceremonies and negotiations about serious affair that affects the whole tribe. He does not represent any segment. He acts as a third party, always. They are usually recruited from among sacral elites, which I shown here. Yep. Sacral elites are two main types, contains two main types distinguished by their relation to tribe. Both act mainly as mediators. So-called priest is more formal institution, descend from a specific spiritually prestigious lineage. He is embedded in the tribal social structure. While so-called prophet is directly possessed by some spirit or god, which uprooted him from kinship relations. He usually disrupts ordinary social organization, forming pan-tribal sodalities for war purposes. Hand in hand comes change in the cult, as we can see maybe in the so-called Odinization of North societies or North American natives, war sodalities, or in contemporary massacres in Africa, led by possessed prophets. Yeah. I think this may have parallels in early medieval societies. The spokesman could be gospodar or hospodář. He deals with strangers. He's a spokesman of given segment. He's a sacrificer, head of household ceremonies. We know many examples. Yep. And we know many examples of law speakers act as a memory specialist. They know ceremonies, law of fathers, and they act only as mediators. And we could find some parallels with prophets or warlords, maybe priest of Arcona or Widukind of Saxons, maybe. Okay. According to Marshall Salins and Descola, segmentary societies have so-called totemic ontology. The main features of these ontologies are that power, vitality, and so on comes from beings that created world and rights of renewal are crucial in these cosmological ontologies. It follows the logic of complementary oppositions. The various spirits in their symbolic configurations occupy the same position in relations to each other as they do in the structural configuration we perceive through sociological analysis. Spirit 1 to spirit 2 is the same as segment 1 to segment 2 and so on. Okay. And it is known that majority of pastoral societies are monotheistic by doctrine, but polytheistic by ritual. This situation is called pluriform monotheism, and where various gods or spirits are manifestations of one, let's say, god or spirit or great spirit, and this god is refracted. This is the words of Evans Pritchett, refracted by various surfaces. It reminds me what Andrei Petersky talked about in his lecture yesterday. In the case of Triglav. Yeah. And the main outcome of this is that each of refraction establish specific law and order with given segment. Yeah, or I think as these in Greek mythology had these connotations. He had thousands place-specific or even specific manifestations. Okay. Law and order. Right arrangement of all things according to the covenant with creator being, setting general principles, laws. They are maintained through acting right or being right, or being in right. In case of violation, order and peace must be restored, not only punished for the crime. We know various cases of order. For example, Nugot, in case of Nuer, I will mention Pax Romana or Pax Augusta, which is probably only propaganda invented by Lucretius, Virgil, and Ovid. That plague, the famine, I don't know, is result of social strife and the rule of injustice in collapsed Respublica. And the restoration of order and prosperity must be made through Pax Augusta, Arapacis, and so on. And in the case of Christianization is sometimes described as clash of two legal orders and culturally irreconcilable ways of life. As we see in Bruno of Careford, life of Adalbert of Prague, we quote, this entire realm to which we stand as gateway, and we ourselves obey one common law and have one single way of life, ordo vivendi. But you who have a different law unknown to us will lose your heads tomorrow if you do not go away tonight. So there are some cases of order, okay, and we have all let's say covenantal prerequisites incorporated in term mir. So as you can see on my presentation, Mir is everything I talked about. Yeah, it's right order based on agreement. Its direction, upright, place, word, Westmere, Občina, emerged on basis of agreement, assembly, place and event, persons, ruler over the world, community of people living in peace, and so on. As Třeštík wrote about what order of term mir, a world in which orderly human relations govern, a cultured world humanized in contrast with uncultivated world, in contrast with area beyond its borders, with a forest, wild animals and barbarians. Okay. At the end of my presentation, some remarks on priestly figure like kněz. He deals with tribal events, shares certain qualities with prophets, as I talk about, and priests. It's law speaker and or spokesman. It lacks systematic power. He stands in complementary opposition to the people of the entire tribe, according to complementary opposition logic. It's literally expressed in act of humiliation from people towards him, maybe the slap in the face in a case of Carinthia enthronement ritual, princely installation, or sitting backwards on an ox during Shulk king installation. Position. Yeah, he has contact with external chaos, make agreements with outside world, guarantee good future in inner world, prosperity, fertility, health, victory, and so on. We could think about well-known enthronement and ploughing ceremony in terms of maintaining peace by establishment of the order, renew the world by reenacting the creation events. It is in accordance with all what I said about this topic. Okay, shortly, in a case of enthronement of kněz Přemysl, the restoration of social order leads to the end of the plague of famine. In the case of ploughing, it is establishing cosmos again out of chaos by its division by furrow, harnessing some wild animals and so on. Okay, that's all, and thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Lukáš, for this presentation and for the attempt to transpose some anthropological ideas to which certainly brings a new discourse to the table. So I open the discussion.
Okay, Lukáš, thank you very much. It was really very interesting. I have just one remark, perhaps, and I can recommend you. You have mentioned a lot of analogists, which are, I think, quite, of course, it is not close, but
Yep.
they are from exotic societies.
Okay.
But I can recommend you the fantastic book, which was written by Edith Durham, and it is about Albania at the beginning of 20th century. And everything you have mentioned is included in that book. And Albania was in the time Ancephal society. So that means there were several segments or tribes, or how we call it, yeah. And it's absolutely perfect because that is mentioned, and Durham was absolutely fantastic cultural anthropologist. So she mentioned how they were organized, how they find the law, everything. There was assemblies, you know, how they define the identity of the people according to mythological ancestors, and so on and so on. And this is from Europe. So I think, you know, it's much closer to what we are talking about, the early medieval stuff, than some, I don't know, Central African analogies.
So so my starting point. So
yeah, for sure. So, but that's fine, and I think what you have described, the same principles you can find there, yeah. And just out of curiosity, they were Christians, these Albanians, at the beginning of 20th century, but at best it was really very strange Christianity, and so they were shooting in the church, offering cattle, and so on and so on. But the priests in the churches were really happy. And they allowed them everything because they were happy that they came to the church. So that was my main reason. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for this remark.
Okay.
Sorry.
So let me say that I am personally a fan of this idea to transmit studies on African societies to Europe, and I did that myself 30 years ago. I just want to ask you named that segmentary societies, and I know from the German studies the term Gesellschaften ohne Staat, societies without state, and acephalic societies. That means that they have no head, no prince at the top of the pyramid that you have been showing with the picture of, I think, the first or second one. And I remember that I read that many of these studies in anthropology about Africa, they began when the British colonialists tried to come to order, let's say, in relations in order with them, and they should subjugate. So, and they have been looking for someone who will sign a treaty or so, but there was no. And then those societies, those segmentary societies, came to the idea that they took a person from the lowest line of the pyramid and put him on the head, and that was the person who was something like a king or something like a prince. And I think if you observe the relations between the Carolingians, the Franks in the 9th century, and they first sent princes to these societies, that may be something parallel. So
I think it too. There is quite good parallels. Tribute parties and so on. It's in British colonies and in.
Sorry, perhaps I would have just a small question now. And do you think, there are some situations in these so-called tribal or segmentary societies when the people perceived big clans as a people, who are connected with one ancestor? Yeah. And do you think it was, for instance, from early medieval societies, it was in Ireland? Yeah. So you can mention, I don't know, hundreds of people who are relatives of you. Yeah. But what do you think about Slavic societies in that case? Because as we know the sources from the 11th and 12th century, there are no indications of big clans like that. Did it exist in your view or not?
I think we have no evidence, but myths like Forefather Czech or something like this may act this way. So. In an ancient time, there could be that structure, but maybe Přemyslic, what was the most prestigious clan in a tribe, most prestigious segment or something like that. I don't know.
The only case I know are Rešovci. Cosmos of Prague. And there were Cosmas who were very good informed about them, and there was a biggest enemy of Přemyslic, of course, and
it must be some complementary segments.
And he had mentioned that they were killed on a lot of places in Bohemia, and there were hundreds of them. So I think that's the only evidence of this clan principle in Central European
or Slavic, maybe.
Perhaps, yeah.